living during the most extraordinary time ever in human history. That's why you're here. But do you have a real sense of how fast things are changing? The conversation I have with a lot of the CEOs in the Silicon Valley area is a conversation that goes like this. People have no idea how fast things are changing. And so I thought I would share with you a conversation that I'm actually teeing up and getting ready for my Abundance 360 program in January. It's one of the modules I'm going to be focusing on, which is why things are actually accelerating faster than ever before. And I almost wanted to call this sort of acceleration of the acceleration. And so let's dive in. So the forces that are driving innovation are being driven by a number of acceleration factors. We think about it as computation, that's getting faster, Moore's law, doubling every 12 to 24 months. But that's not it alone. And the realization is that if you think today is fast, you haven't seen anything yet. That we're entering a period of time where we're about to start hockey sticking. So why is this happening? And by the way, I see you taking photographs. You're welcome to. I'm going to give you a chance to download these slides at the very end as well. So you've seen this chart from Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, and it shows computational growth over the last 110 years. The smoothness of this curve is extraordinary. You don't see World War I or World War II. And it's likely to continue. And when it does, you get this continuation of this curve, which shows us that, 6 years from now, an average $1,000 computer you go down to Best Buy and purchase, if they're still around, is now calculating at the rate of the human brain. And just some 25 years later, now $1,000 will buy you the computational power of the entire human race. And so this notion that computation is getting faster and cheaper and more ubiquitous and available everywhere and free is likely to continue. And what's interesting, though, is that it's not just about the computation. It's the notion that that computation is the oxygen in the room. If you're an architect or a builder, it's the foundation upon which you're building your buildings. If you're a biologist, it's the growth medium. And you see, that faster, cheaper, ubiquitous, always-on computing power is driving everything else, right? It's driving sensors and networks, AI, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology. As the computation gets faster, these all are getting faster. And you can be an expert in any one of these, and many of you are. But it's the convergence of these. It's the combination of these, right? It's AI and VR and blockchain coming together and reinventing an entire industry. And so when I get excited, it's not just the computation. It's all these other technologies coming together and weaving together that are creating these unexpected convergent consequences. New business models, right? And I get excited not just by the technology, but the business models that we're creating. So, but it's not just that. There's a term I wrote about in my last book, Bold, that I teach to the CEOs that I mentor, and I call it interface moments. So what's an interface moment? So in 2093, when Mark Andreessen created the earliest browser, Mosaic, he was building Mosaic on top of the backbone of what was DARPA's mechanism of connecting computers, right? And what Mosaic was an interface moment. It was a mechanism that allowed an entrepreneur to interface with a massive capability and build businesses and make money on top of that. And if you think about it, so was the App Store, right? The App Store was an interface moment. It was a mechanism when all of a sudden an entrepreneur could build a business on top of a widespread network of capabilities. So when I think about the ultimate interface moment, it is what's coming online with artificial intelligence, because we're not very far from the moment in time when this is true. When I have an AI and you have an AI, and we're surrounded by an AI shell that you can speak to, talk to, it can literally read your mind. Not quite there yet, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But that AI becomes your interface to anything you want. You want to 3D print a new attachment to your whatever? You don't have to know how to write a CAD/CAM file, right? You can say, I'd like the attachment to have a handle, and can you make it a little bit longer? Can you make it lighter weight material? Can you make it cheaper for me? And all of a sudden, the AI is able to convert your language into 3D printing code. We're going from mind to materialization. That AI is the ultimate interface moment. You want to do CRISPR sequencing? You want to actually modify the genome of your puppy? You can talk to the AI and have it literally create the CRISPR-Cas9 sequencing required to do that. So we're all of a sudden, all of those technologies I spoke about that are driving and being ridden on top of computational exponential change, AI becomes your interface with every single one of those technologies. No expertise needed, just a desire and an understanding of what you want. Going from intentionality to implication, right? So think of this. Think about AI enabling everybody who can speak their mind to be able to connect with exponential technologies. And so another force driving and accelerating change is just massive connectivity. What does that mean? So we've got Zuckerberg, whose intention is to connect the other half of the planet with drones and satellites. You've got Google with Google Loon. You've got Paul Jacobs, Richard Branson, Greg Weiler with $1.2 billion of funding from SoftBank that is now building a 900 satellite constellation. And then you have recent announcements by SpaceX for a 4,425 satellite constellation. I want you to imagine the entire planet being covered in mass connectivity, right? Add on top of that, my friends at Qualcomm with the 5G world starting testing in 2019 and deployment in 2020, where your cell phone is doing 10 to 100 gigabit connection speeds. We're heading towards a world in which everything and everyone is connected at gigabit connection speeds all the time, right? There's going to be no place on the planet, I don't care if you're at the peak of the Himalayas or out in Patagonia, where if you want to be connected gigabit speeds, you can't. So we're connecting the planet. And besides connecting the planet, we're also about to see an explosion of sensors. So my friends at Cisco talk about the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, right? That by 2020, we're going to have something on the order of 50 billion connected devices. And on the end of those connected devices are 1 trillion sensors. And by 2030, we're heading towards 100 trillion sensors. And those sensors, with that connection, and AI gives us extraordinary knowledge. So we're heading towards a world in which we're going to be able to know anything we want, anytime we want, anywhere we want. So we have at least a half dozen constellations in orbit today. These constellations are providing high-resolution images at 0.5 meter to 5 meter, and also live video. You can watch what's going on in your competitors' parking lots on the other side of the world, or raw materials coming into their factory and final products coming out. But you can zoom in because we're going to have tens of thousands of drones over every major city, delivering things, watching things, scanning things, looking at the world below in centimeter resolution. Then, of course, autonomous cars, right? This is a Google autonomous car with a LiDAR, right, with 60 eye-safe lasers, generating 750 megabytes of data per second. That's one car seeing everything within 100 meters range. Imagine 2 million cars on the roads, right? Just 1% of the US traffic fleet, seeing everything everywhere. And then whatever augmented reality becomes, with forward-looking cameras, looking in millimeter resolution. So we're heading towards a world where everything is being imaged all the time, connected to the cloud, connected to AIs, giving us not just data, but knowledge. Where you can ask the question, what's the most popular color for a man's shirt on the corner of 5th and Madison and actually get the answer. So it's the questions you ask. So where are we? We have computation growing. We have on top of computation all these other exponential technologies growing. We have interface moments giving everyone access to those. You have connection around the world. You have sensors around the world. And we have more brains online, right? Today we have 3 billion people connected to the globe, to the internet. Right? That's up from 1.8 billion 7 years ago. In 2022, 5 years from now, to 2025, we're going to have every single person on this planet connected. We're going to have 8 billion people connected. So when I talk about the world is getting faster, I'm talking about 5 billion new minds coming online with access through an interface moment to all those exponential technologies, with access, 5 billion people with gigabit connection speeds to all the tech you want. 5 billion people looking for problems to solve because as I teach, the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. Want to become a billionaire, help 1 billion people. One of the other most interesting unintended consequences of this massive connectivity is more genius. Right? So we are living in a world today where 3 billion out of 7.5 billion are connected. But I want you to imagine a time a century ago where someone was a genius born in a small village without any connectivity. Would that genius ever come online, ever be identified, ever be known? So as the world's population grows, one of the most extraordinary things we're going to have is the ability for genius, wherever he or she is born, to actually pop up like a light bulb on the planet. And so I think we'll have an explosion in the amount of global genius. Natural and man-made. Because the other side of the equation, if you follow the work that my dear friend Ray Kurzweil talks about, is that in the next, what year are we in, 2017, the next 17, 18 years, we're about to connect your neocortex to the cloud. Right? So we're heading towards a world where we are about to connect the human brain to the cloud. So interestingly enough, we've got a ton of work going on in this. You've got Brian Johnson, one of my benefactors at X Prize, a member of the SU community, who has committed over $100 million of his own money, and he's raising $1 billion for a company called Kernel, which is working on truly interfacing your brain to the cloud. You've got Elon working on his efforts. You've got Facebook working on their efforts. You've got Advanced Micro Devices working on their efforts. You've got deep military programs working on their efforts. So when Ray used to talk about mid-2030s as the point at which we're beginning to connect the brain to the cloud, I used to raise an eyebrow. But I am seeing evidence for it all over the place. If you think there was an arms race going on today for AI, I think we're going to have an arms race going on for HI, human intelligence. Because it's not about AI versus humans. It's about AI versus HI. How do we increase the intelligence of the people in our company? How do we increase the intelligence of the people in our country? And so at the end of the day, all of these factors are driving. But yet there's one last factor that's driving for me this massive acceleration. And it's that we have more wealth concentrated in the hands of individuals than ever before. And that wealth is willing to take moonshots. Right? So you can look at just a few of the individuals out there. Larry's mission to organize the world's information, to create flying cars, Zuckerberg committing billions of dollars to curing all disease, Bezos, not the everything store, but Bezos wanting to put millions of people into space. Elon, the same thing with opening up Mars and creating an all-electric economy. Bill Gates attacking so many diseases, first among which is malaria. So we're alive at a time where there's more wealth in the hands of private individuals willing to take more and bigger risks than ever before. And so when I think about it, it's the combination of all of these factors that are driving an accelerated change. You guys with me on this? All right, so it's not just computation. It's all of these things together. And at the end of the day, these are all things that enable you as a CEO, you as an entrepreneur, to go bigger than ever before. And the implications of this are extraordinary. We're heading towards a world, if you saw me speak at Exponential Finance, we're heading towards a world in which we're demonetizing everything. We're heading very much towards a post-capitalist society, more like a Star Trek universe, where the cost of food, water, healthcare, education, everything is trending towards zero. But we're also heading towards a world of abundance. And I just want to feed this to you as the countermeasure for those of you who happen to make the mistake of watching the Crisis News Network or the Constantly Negative News Network or whatever you want to call CNN. Because you can't, there's a little bit of delayed reaction for those who finally got it. CNN, Crisis News Network, okay. Because we're living in a time where it truly is amazing, where the data shows us that despite all the bullshit going on in the world is becoming better at an extraordinary rate. And our ability, your responsibility, my responsibility to continue that and make that happen is greater than ever before. So this is from a great website I commend to you, Our World in Data. So here's the plummeting of extreme poverty around the world. This is the increase in reading literacy globally. This is the increase in democracy from 1% to 56%. This number of people around the world living in democracy. I wonder if they count the United States in it. I think they do. Increase in vaccination. I hope no one here thinks vaccination is a fraud, please. I love this, right? I'm the father of two 6-year-old boys, and I think about this. I want you to imagine a world 200 years ago where your children had nearly a 50-50 chance of dying. What kind of world is that? What do you think of the world when you see half of your children perishing before the age of 5? What do you think of life? So this is from some data that Bill Gates first showed at TED, which is extraordinary, this amazing increase in survival rate. I was having a conversation with some of the alumni earlier today about, as we live longer, what about overpopulation? 2 things reduce population growth rates on the planet. You make a populace healthier and better educated, they go into negative growth rates. A lot of my friends are worried about underpopulation of planet Earth, not overpopulation of planet Earth. And you can see here how that is plummeted over time. And then finally, one of my missions, Rob had mentioned this, is how do we double the human lifespan? So for all of human history, for most of human history, the average lifespan was 26 to 30 years old. At age 13, you'd go into puberty and you'd have a baby. And then you, as a child, would grow up, and then until, your child, you're now 26, your child is 13, they have a baby. And when food was scarce, the best thing you could do was die and give your bits back to the environment so you didn't take food from the newborn's mouth. And so the average age for most of human existence was late 20s, early 30s. Then comes in things such as sanitation, germ theory, we double human lifespan, and we're on the verge of doubling it again. So what's it like for you when 100 years old is in you 60? So I want to wrap here in the following way. First of all, if you'd like these slides, if you go to this website and just, diamandis.com/slides, and you put in your email, you'll get a copy of these slides. And those of you who are interested in what I do every year in January, either at Abundance 360 or our digital version. You can send an email to summit@a360 or digital@a360. We're alive during a pivotal time in human history. It's during our lives that the most extraordinary things are going to play out. What you do with it is everything. Each of you have the ability to change the world. There is nothing you do not have access to. You have access to all the computational needs you have. You have access to all the wealth you could possibly need through crowd financing, through venture. For God's sakes, even sovereign wealth funds are beginning to come in and start funding entrepreneurs. There's no scarcity of capital. There's no scarcity of talent. There's one thing and one thing only that makes the decision or the choice between success and failure, and that's your mindset. It's your decision right here, right now, to say, I can play a bigger game. I can go and attack and solve one of the world's grand challenges. I can go and make my dreams come true. I know that I can do more, and I'm here at this event to do more. Right? It's going from success to significance. You've all been successful. If you weren't successful, you wouldn't be here. Right? This is not a cheap event. This is, you've traveled from around the world to be here. So what you do with your experience here, with the people you meet, is up to you. Right? I believe in that. If I have one mission through the work that I do at Singularity University, at X Prize, it's to hit the drumbeat that you can impact 1 billion people, that you can solve the world's biggest problems, that you can create wealth by creating a more abundant world. And it's right here, right now, these next 2 decades, that the game is being played. You know, when people ask me, do you think that we're living in a simulation or a virtual world, I say, absolutely. Because, you know, it's no coincidence we're alive right now during the last few percentage points of this game. It's an amazing time to be alive. I hope each of you will walk away with the conviction, the dedication, the access to the partners and the tools to make a better world. I look forward to seeing you guys in the days ahead. I have to say congratulations to Will Weissman and the entire team here. This event has really blossomed, and I'm excited to be here every year for the next few hundred years. An honor and a pleasure. Thank you.